I think what you all have in common is you have products that are much more complex than they were 20 years ago. I think 20, maybe 30 years ago, you all had products that were purely mechanical. And now, you know, it's just a fact that every one of you has software and electronics and onboard diagnostics and huge sets of features and innovation that's coming in electronics and software, and I think it just makes the whole development process that much more complicated.
I mean, you got to believe that the growth of embedded software in products has driven a lot of that complexity. You know, I think, Jim, you've pointed out the fact in past presentations that you know, the average luxury car going down the road these days has 100 million lines of code in it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's more lines of code than we manage.
I joke that there's more lines of code in my Lexus than there is in my R&D team. And there's a lot of lines of code at PTC.
So, you know, software developers are now, you know, they're clearly on the critical path to getting a product out the door. You know, embedded in the product development process together with their, you know, mechanical peers and electrical peers. Can we talk a little bit about the role that embedded software is playing in your products these days? Are you seeing this rapid rise in embedded software? You know, in many cases, you know, I'll just bring out my iPhone again. This thing's nothing more than a package to hold a bunch of software, really. So can you talk a little bit about where you're seeing this sort of tremendous rise in embedded software and how you're dealing with that, trying to integrate a brand new style of development into what, as Jim pointed out, was traditionally sort of a mechanical world?
Maybe I can take this first. If I look over the last 20 years of my company, it's indeed like Jim said. Okay, we were very much component-centric, maybe even 10 years ago. Right now, we have more than 2/3 of our engineers are system engineers or software engineers.
2/3 of your engineers.
Two-thirds of the engineers. And if you would count them up, I'm not supposed to talk about numbers here, but I'm pretty sure I could maybe find 5 IT companies which have more software developers as we have. So we have by far more.
It would take a couple of rooms this size to house them all, yeah.
Exactly. So, and what, you know, if you look on the software, depending on the source you look at, they say 60 to 80% of the innovation in the car comes out of software. Okay, and maybe on the other side, you could also say 60 to 80% of the problems you have on the field with the car comes out of software. How comes that? Okay, if you really look and you start, actually all companies started off kind of component-centric and hardware-centric. You did the mechanical engineering, the electrical engineering, the software engineering, and this didn't really connect. If you now look on how a software engineer really ticks, you know, in our case, if I get a mechanic change, if a box has to change or something, I get probably 10 electronic changes in the same time and 100 software changes in the same time. So software is very, very dynamic. And what you have to go there, you have to give up on the disciplines. You have really to become a real system-centric company. You really need to understand the overall system and to see what impacts the software has to the hardware or vice versa. And there's, you know, for almost every application, you have always different responses. You could have a mechanical one. So my favorite example is the window lifter, you know. Actually, you need to understand what the end user wants to do, open and close the window, right? And maybe he doesn't want to squeeze too much the fingers of his kids, you know. There's one poor mechanical response, you know. You remember those days, you know? And you could also come up with some more intelligent. You could come up with something electrical, and you look there back to complexity. A window lifter is pretty complex. You know, that first thing you need to make, okay, you have to make sure that the fingers are not squeezed too much. Next point is, maybe if you're smart, you have a rain sensor in your car. Maybe you parked your car with open windows. Maybe you could just close it since you figure out it's raining and stuff like that. So you really need to go the systematic approach there.
I mean, cars really are, you know, they're becoming rolling software platforms with entertainment devices and navigation devices and so forth. I have to imagine that's driving a tremendous amount of complexity in your business.